Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Jonah and the Pod. Today, I have two very special guests. I guess if you watched last week's episode, you probably know who they are. So firstly, we do have the lovely Adriana.
Hello.
She was on last episode. And we also have the lovely Sarah, who was on one of the earliest episodes, actually, in season 1.
Hey, guys.
Guys, welcome them. So we're going to talk a bit about the dynamics between, I guess, man friendships, and women friendships. So to start off, how did you guys meet? Because you guys are good friends, I assume, I hope. How did you guys meet? How this friendship grow and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So do you want to go? I feel like we're going to be like looking back and forth the whole pod, like who should be speaking. But I guess I'll start off and you can like fill up whatever. So I guess I was new to our church end of 2020 and I was still establishing friendships. And then Adriana had she was 1 year at the church before and then at our church for like a year.
Yeah.
And funny story, I used to work in Cabramatta and so we knew each other but like vaguely, but this is sort of like the starting moment of our friendship, I would say.
Definitely the first moment that I remember.
Yeah, so I used to work in Cabramatta and one day I went to Woolworths to like buy my lunch and I see Adriana and she's in like work uniform and I'm looking and I'm like, bro, does she work here? Like, I swear she's told me, like, but I don't know, like, where she works. So then, like, we start talking and I'm like, oh, let's catch up. And then I guess that was the start of the friendship because it was just such a random God moment.
Yeah.
And then I guess we caught up and then...
Like, nothing special.
Yeah.
Like, not like, it wasn't like this drop of the moment, drop of a hat, kind of like we had this amazing conversation. We're kind of just like, oh, we're both in a space where when needing friendship, I guess, like the church, for most people, were open to new friendships. It was also COVID, so I think we were like in desperate need of socialization. And that was for most people, but we just kind of like, okay, like there's this opportunity. It wouldn't have made sense on paper, I guess. Like, both come from different backgrounds. We both are in different stages of life. The only thing really keeping us, like, together in that moment was that we were kind of hovering. Were you even coming regularly at that point? Or, like, I
just started. Like, I think it was, like, maybe 2 or 3 months of commitment.
Yeah. So, it's not like we were established in the church as well, but it was the bonding or the uniting thing. We just kind of both were... I guess open to friendship, and then that moment came up and we're like, okay. And even in again, I'm gonna speak like our first meetup was, you know, just getting to know each other, like generic kind of. Was it in like Canley Heights or something?
Yeah, it was in Canley Heights.
Like it was like nothing dramatic, and I don't know, I felt like that's how most friendships start. Like you don't expect like this spark and the depth immediately to come, and yeah, I don't know.
Can I ask you guys an awkward question?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Did you guys have like preconceived ideas on who, like Sarah, did you have preconceived ideas on Adriana and Adriana to Sarah? Like what was your like first impressions of them? Were you like, this person's a weirdo? Like what was it? Or do you not remember? Adriana's like, why'd you ask the question?
I'm trying to remember that first time I actually met her.
I'm not sure. I would say probably, I don't remember the first time I met you, but I think because you were, you're really close to the person that brought me to Graceway.
Yeah.
Like, so I already trusted her, like, sort of character because I'm like, oh, well, she's friends with this person. And I think because, like, it was, like, fresh new church and everyone was, like, there was a lot of new people at the same time and we were, like, all just, like, really excited to get to know each other. I think that environment was a bit different to, like, maybe... like a normal way of meeting people.
Yeah, and definitely that mutual friend kind of like might have removed any barriers, but maybe that's a problem of like coming in with a preconceived notion. I'm just trying to think it was just a season of like no one cared who was in front of you. You're just like, oh, it's a friend. It's friend potential. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, and you were saying like you kind of cast the net very wide.
Yeah.
And you see what you caught. Preconceived notion, no. Like there was nothing to go off. We weren't seeing each other that often for me to have an established.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bit safe or like generic for your answer.
No, that's fine. I was just like, imagine there was something like just like, oh, I hated this person, or just
Yeah.
I don't think we saw each
You
other
didn't know
enough.
each other,
Yeah, to like have anything preconceived already or built up.
yeah. For me, like, just looking back, I was like trying to think of like when the first time I met, because to me, I was like, but these girls know like exactly when they sort of became friends. I'm like, I have no idea. But when I think about it, I know the first time I met a few of the guys, so most of the guys I wouldn't actually, it's not like something, oh, I became a friend with that guy that day. I remember like the first time me and Fatty like clicked because we had like both had like the same same theology on the same theological opinion on something, and then I just like whispered on him like, you don't agree with what they're saying, do you? And then he's like, no, I agree with you. But like I remember the first time I met Fatty and Bashad, but I don't actually remember when it all clicked.
And see, that's already something that's quite interesting, is that I feel like for girls, and again, this is very generalization, it might not even be true, but in my experience, whenever it's been a friend that's moved from like just this random, like kind of catching up superficial thing to you're the first person I'm going to call, for girls, it's been like this really emotionally vulnerable, like I'm crying on the phone or I'm very confused and I don't know what to do. And it takes that, let go of my pride and I'm going to call this person. Whereas for guys, it's like, hey, we just click theologically. Like, great, that's it. We're set for life. Like, I don't know if that's true. What like, would you say that?
Okay.
The threshold for depth.
The thing is, most of the guys I can just call up. It depends how deep we're talking. Are we talking about like my deepest secrets? Because there's only like a couple of guys at church that I would actually say that to, or like whatever. But just generally, if I'm struggling with whatever it is, if I'm struggling with a sin, I can go to any of the guys and be like, I need help. And I think not any of them wisely, most of them I would say like I can go to them and be like, hey, I need help with this, I'm struggling. And they'll all help in different ways, they'll all help different levels. Most of them would they wouldn't be judgmental.
And I guess what made those deeper friendships deeper, if that makes sense? Like, what was the trigger point?
Well, I think in my solo episode 2 weeks ago, someone asked a question of what's it called? What do I look for in a friendship? And I said there's two sorts of friendship. There's three actually. There's entertainment friends. They're just like, it's just you have them for fun, like entertaining. You don't really have deep conversations often, whatever. And then you have friends that are just there for deep conversations. But it's just like you can just talk about like D&M all the time with that person. You don't really hang out much, but when you talk, it's good talk. But then there's friends, and I think most of Graceway people, or most of I guess my Christian friends would go in that bracket. But then there's like a handful where it's like all right, they're actually like it's entertainment and deep conversations. So I can talk about nonsense with them and not have an issue, and I can talk about deep stuff and not have an issue. I think it's hard to find that balance. What about you? Both of you.
That's actually a very fascinating way of describing it.
In friends? Like different level of friendships?
Yeah. So Adriana's question to me, back to you guys.
Yeah.
I love that though. I love the way you just kind of like, the reality is there are some that are going to meet both needs. There are some that are going to meet only one. And that doesn't make any of them less, but you will reach into some first. And when we've been talking obviously about, this is way before even the podcast, we like contemplate on what and why some friendships work and some don't. And again, it doesn't need to be some bad fallout thing, but like there are needs that can be met better in some places than others. And entertainment is an interesting way of putting it.
That's just how my brain
But
works.
yeah, like, again, the more like impersonal kind of bantery, laughing, like, and then the DNMs are like they require more of you internally and spiritually and emotionally. And the best of them really are the combination where like you don't need to be a DNM all the time, but you can be if you need to be. And
That's true. And I think I was saying this earlier to Adriana, like in my head, the way I have my friends is like in a filing cabinet. So like sort of like you, I have my serious friends, I have my entertaining friends, and then I also have like my really like deep friends. And I think that's how like I have my expectations of everyone, like, and I guess that's how I can have friendships with non-believers as well. It's because I'm not putting them in the category of deep friendships. I'm putting them as like entertainment or like something a bit in the smaller scale. So I think even like with a friendship, and like in your previous episode, you're kind of like, you know, things aren't static. So my friend might start as a entertainment friend, and then like later on they might move into, you know, the DNM friend. So I think that's how I sort of categorize my friendships.
Interesting.
but also the preconceived, like, thinking someone remains in one category is very dangerous, because in a certain season they might be both or they might be the other, and you just refuse to let God work in that space. So have you ever felt like there's a friend that unexpectedly has moved from one category to the other?
Not really. No, I wouldn't say so. I'm trying to think, but prior to Graceway, I didn't have many quality friends. I say quality friends. That's not what I meant. I meant like, I don't know what I meant. I didn't have many of like a lot of my friendships were either like destroyed or just a lot of things happened. So I didn't have like those solid Christian buddies next to me that I needed. So prior to Graceway, nothing really was there. But I think maybe someone, the first person that I thought of was like Yusuf. I think Yusuf started off as like me and him can talk about whatever. But I think more now than ever, it's like we're closer. Like he's one of those people that fill in both categories for me. So maybe yes, sometimes, but I don't really close it off. I'm just, if I hang out with them and a deep conversation comes up, I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. But yeah,
but I don't know. I think about us, and like that first section of our friendship was very much, if I had written off Sarah into that category, we probably wouldn't have ended up where we are now. It was like we're just catching up. It's like we would talk about deep things, but it was never personal. Like it was just our opinion on topics, which we can do in groups, which is why we might feel very surrounded by people but very alone at the same time. It's just never about either of our lives, but it's just about things we think about. And I've heard this quote recently that was like, we love to fellowship about God but not fellowship with him. It's like we can talk a lot about it, but internally we're not really doing anything. But it was just crazy. And then that next year, the 2020, I found out I was moving to 2021. So we'd caught up like 2 or 3 times, and she was in like, if I had that filing cabinet, she was like that, I'm not gonna call you when I'm down kind of friend, realistically. But it took one moment of me being like, us being like, hey, do you want to come to Melbourne? Like, on the basis of what? But that open kind of like invite.
That's true. And I guess the first trip that we were supposed to go was because of COVID. The lockdown happened. So we postponed it to like 2022, January. But before I went, we had like this one catch up, and I guess like I said, like a piece of information, and it was kind of like an invitation to her. It was kind of a vulnerable information, and then like that's when like she opened up as well, and like yeah, I think sometimes like, you know, in friendships, like we're scared to be vulnerable. Either, you know, we want to protect our name, we either have shame, pride, or we want to protect like other people's names, especially if like you're in some kind of conflict and like you don't want to tarnish the name. But I think like that's the beauty in being vulnerable, is just that deep connection that you can have with someone. And I guess that sort of like catapulted things.
Yeah, like we could have caught up for like 6, 7, 8 months down the track, all these like random catch-ups, but it took that one session of like, you know, Sarah giving a little bit more than what was expected. And again, I think also when you're being vulnerable, being wise about who's on the other end, like having those 5, 6 sessions gave me the comfort and peace to know that Sarah in everything will be loving and graceful and merciful. So, and the other bit that I've recently learned to value is the rebuke and the challenge of, hey, pull yourself together kind of thing. So in her vulnerability, I was also like, oh, like, okay, this can be an expectation of this friendship. And we like that mutual vulnerability, I think, was very important. But it can also be like, you shouldn't expect it from the get-go. Like if you're only sharing something in expectation of somebody sharing something back, you might be disappointed and you'll start filing that friendship in a different cabinet kind of thing. But I think that was a turning point. It's like one moment.
Yeah. And like at the same time, like you also take a risk when you're like vulnerable, because you don't know how the person's going to respond. You don't know how they're going to take the information, or if they'll, I guess, reciprocate. So like in the same way, like I was casting my net wide, and like you just go out on a limb and be vulnerable, and then you just see where it takes you, kind of thing.
Can I ask, what does vulnerable mean to you guys? Yeah, obviously don't go into detail, but just in a...
I think it's just, for me, it's probably sharing maybe information about myself that not many people know, and then there's maybe like implication if a lot of people knew, like it probably have an effect on me. Or yeah, you know, being very like emotionally vulnerable or spiritually vulnerable kind of thing.
Like essentially the benefit is exposure, but other than that, the risk is to everything else. And I think when you feel like your pride might get in the way, your reputation, your whatever, if that is at risk, but the benefit is exposure and healing, then that's what being vulnerable is like, I think, tearing down the wall of like safety. I don't know. Would you describe it differently? Like,
no, because it's just... So this is where we actually compare guys and girls. So for me,
All right.
guys, like when you guys say vulnerable, when you girls say vulnerable, I'm thinking like the guy way of vulnerable. And for me, being vulnerable is like, guys, I'm struggling with this sin, I need your help. Or like, yeah, that's like that's like the big thing of like, I need someone to keep me accountable on this, because this is what I need. I remember the first Bible study I was at. This isn't normal for guys to do. I'm just abnormal. But the first men's Bible study I was at, they were talking about Jonah, funnily enough. And I just asked the question. I won't say what it was, but I just asked the question. I was like, lads, this is what I struggle with.
boys.
I didn't know them by that. Like I knew them very like face value. First men's Bible study I've been at. And I just said, guys, I struggle with this. And then all of them were just like, it felt like they were just like a burden off everyone's shoulders. Because that's when like, okay, this guy got vulnerable. I was new to them. This guy got vulnerable. Now we can start speaking, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's like, it's different to what you're saying, because yours is just like, guys, I'm going through something. When I'm like, guys, I'm
my soul is at risk kind of thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I agree. I think I agree and disagree. Like we do get to those moments. Like there are moments where I'm like, it doesn't happen as often, I think, because I want to say I'm a little bit less aware, or I am aware and I've just always felt like I need to be self-sufficient about it. So the vulnerability isn't in sharing about the problem. It's about, hey, I actually need help. That's the vulnerability of it.
Yeah.
And that same mentality applies to, hey, I'm going through something. Me reaching out to the girls is admitting weakness. And I think that's that's the vulnerable element of like, I am weak and I need help, rather than, hey, this is the problem I'm struggling with.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if it's just like,
Yeah, and I don't know if it has something to do with women, and I'm sorry if I generalize girls, but like I think maybe that emotional element to like our struggles is just like, that's why we're like kind of maybe a bit more closed off to vulnerability.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Like I think like our emotional tendencies, or like how God made us, might make it a bit harder for us to be vulnerable.
Okay. Yeah.
In like because like what we're suffering has such an emotional weight to it.
Can I be very honest? Something that I see. Obviously, I'm not a woman. Surprisingly, yes. But something I see when I look at the comparisons between men and women, there are a lot of different things, and a lot of them are healthy differences. But one that isn't healthy, and I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the fact that like, I feel like there's not much accountability within the women.
that's fascinating. Because I would have said the same thing back to men.
Yeah. Look, I think we're going to speak for ourselves.
Yes.
We're going to
Yeah,
speak
yeah,
for
please.
ourselves.
The preface is we are talking from
About
our
ourselves.
experience.
Like, and we're not lumping our church into this. Like, I personally,
all girls in general.
yeah, girls in general,
Yeah.
I feel like our church has beautiful female friendships. And if I'm wrong, I'm really sorry. But for us, I think that is the beauty of our friendship, is like the emotional support, but it's also the rebuke. Like,
But you are right in that it can be hard to find that.
yeah.
Is that common among male friendships, or it's also very special, unique friendships?
Or is it just like our church? Because I'm like, I don't feel like I've seen many male friendships like our church anyway, even in other churches. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, like I said, this is probably like the first that I've had proper male friendships. So this is like my case study.
Yeah.
So-
Do you feel like what do you feel like the barriers are for men in accountability? Because I'd say they might be different for females. I would say like we might fear hurting someone, and again, it's that emotional element. Whereas for guys, I have the impression of like they fear a hurt to ego or pride or the productivity or like this image element.
No, I think it's a fear of showing weakness, if anything. So it's like the opposite.
Yeah.
I think we like to go to our guys, be like, guys, I'm struggling with like this just happened to me. Like I'm feeling sad.
Yeah.
Like it's so foreign. Maybe because we feel that kind of stuff less. For me, at least personally, and it's rare. The times that I go to the boys about like, guys, I'm feeling this sort of way. If it's leading to temptation or it's something along those lines, that's like when it just leads to sin. That's when I'm like, okay, guys, I need your help.
Yeah.
But when I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, guys, I'm over it. Like today, I messaged Bashar like, but today's been long because we were talking, and I was like, sorry, it's just today's been just nothing's gone right, sort of thing. And I'm like, and he's like, bro, just that's fine. Tomorrow's a new day. That's fine. So you're right. Yeah.
You know what I am gonna say? I think maybe, and this is from my observations, I think maybe accountability is more drilled into men, because you read your books and all the famous sermons, and men are always told get accountability partners, but
is it because they tend to be self-sufficient otherwise?
Yeah, or it's associated with those sins.
Yes,
But
I think
I'm not gonna lie. When have we ever heard get an accountability partner for gossiping? Or
That's
get
so
an
true.
accountability
But that's
partner
the thing.
for your
It
credit
probably
card.
is the biggest barrier to vulnerability among women. Like, if I speak for myself, my entire life, if there's one thing that's hindered vulnerability, it is the element of trust.
Yeah, and the element of I could be.
I wonder
gossiped
how will
Yeah.
this be used against me
Yeah.
among the girls, and just again throughout life. Like, it's not even unique to specific people or places. Like, not at all. But that is something we tend to struggle more with. But yeah, you're right. Like, where is accountability in that?
Yeah.
Look, this is why I actually love this conversation, and it's something that's been on my heart for a while now. And I've spoken to, like, I feel like there's only a handful of of girls that I can actually speak to this about, and they'll be open and honest. So thank you. But like, it hurts me to see, like, all the girls, they have a relationship with each other. I'm generalizing, but it seems like there's like a lack of accountability, and I think Sarah's right. For men, it's very easy. It's like the main two, probably lust and pride. That's like, guys, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, whatever. For girls, maybe it is gossiping, but how do you measure that? With lust, there is a measurement. Pride, there is a measurement.
But I even think like this categorizing of sin to specific genders is very dangerous.
Yes,
I agree.
And I think part of that is that we think that the same sins that men don't struggle with, women don't struggle with, and need that's a lie.
Yeah, that's
the
a big
humbling
lie.
thing is like, no, we all, like, guys struggle with gossip in a different way than girls struggle with lust in a very different way, and we still need accountability for it, but we might not even see it.
This is why I love that conversation, because I hope that it actually starts something within the women, within the men, to actually see what they're lacking and maybe start it. Because like, it hurts. It sort of hurts my heart, the fact that I'm just going to use you too because you're here. But like, Sarah, you can't go to someone that is more mature in faith and be like, hey, I'm struggling with lust, because you'll be probably looked like down upon and be like, hey, you're a woman, how are you struggling with lust? Like, sort of thing.
But the most empowering moments have been the opposite.
Those moments.
Yeah, like, I like, not to any specific sin, but like when you are able to go to particular groups, or like when I can go to Sarah or any of the girls and be like, this is something that you might not expect me to struggle with, but I do. And for it to be met with, it unlocks something totally different. And it unlocks a freedom of a kind that I've never seen before. And it is different to, hey, you're expecting me to struggle with gossip, and when I come with it, you have a template answer ready to give to me. But when it's something nobody's expecting, you truly get the work of God, I think. Not just like...
And then when like one person opens up, I'm actually struggling with this sin that no one expected, it's like, we all struggle with this sin. Like,
exactly.
And it's kind of like, well, Satan like kept us all in the dark, isolated from each other, even though you're like the closest people ever. And then you have this like eureka moment of like,
Eureka.
And that's how that one friendship turns from superficial to deep. Because most people would say, like, I'd say the barriers to forming biblical strong friendship is, one, the beginning bit of actually making them. And you might not be in any place or any church or any whatever, and you might not be putting yourself in places, or there might not be people reaching out. That's one. Then it's the, how do friendships go from the superficial, we're just catching up once a month, to you're the first person I'm going to call. I think it is those, like, I'm going to be weak in front of this person without even knowing that risk of, I'm not going to know what they're going to do with this. They might go and ruin my name. They might strengthen and build a wall around me when I can't have the strength for myself. And those moments, I think, and then, the bit after that is, how do you sustain those friendships? But I'd say with girls like Sarah, and a lot of girls, I'd say at our church, at Graceway, there is a genuineness to everyone's love that I can't say that I feel like I need to hide anything. There are definitely people you go to first because they meet certain needs better than others, but that is such a testament to the heart and love of God among the community, that like, the self-awareness of, I am fallen first before this person.
That's like, let's say, like, we're just generalizing, but let's say girls struggle with gossip. Let's say that's the big one. Do you actually find women to actually go to other women saying, I'm struggling with gossip, can you pull me up when I gossip? Or is that just like a foreign thing, very rare?
Look, we have had instances where like there has been examples of sin, and we're like, all right, like we'll pull each other up. But if it's like, we're not going to be there to witness you sin, like you have to tell us, kind of thing. So
it goes both ways.
It's like, it's not completely foreign.
Again, we speak for our friendship. I have definitely heard moments where it's like, hey guys, we need to stop this.
Like we'll be mid-conversation of like, what are we doing?
Like, what is that?
Like, we need to stop.
But there are times, I feel like the urgency in dealing with it might not be as dramatic as it should be. I don't know if that's fair. Like, I feel like when you talk about guys' kind of accountability, it is, we are meeting weekly. We are encouraging one another day to day. We are battling this like we are putting on the armor and we are fighting this because we realize the kind of enemy we're fighting.
Yeah.
I don't feel like, from my perspective, it's been dealt with in the same way in female circles. And I'm going to speak from my experience is that maybe internally we don't weigh it up to be as equally bad as sin,
Okay. So,
which is probably part of the problem.
okay. The next question was like, why do you think that's a thing? But I think that's the answer. So you think that they don't take sin serious enough, or they just don't understand that it is sin?
Are you talking about gossip or just sin, period?
Just whatever you.
No, I definitely think we take sin seriously. I think it's maybe that, like, we might have like a more of a like lone wolf mentality. Yeah, but I would say, like, I would argue this, that like,
You think gossip is dealt with in the same way that men deal with some sins?
not gossip,
But like, yeah.
but other sins, and I would say especially like emotionally fueled sins,
Yeah.
like, are dealt with seriously.
Like, so something like anger or something.
Anger, like if you're like something out of sadness, something out of like
Petty, not.
like, but yeah, anything that's like an
Envy.
extreme, like I would say we take that seriously. Would you say
I
that?
might disagree. I feel like
I feel like I take that.
Yeah, but again, I feel like we tend to also fuel the flame and like be an echo chamber sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which is like because the emotional element, like.
Yeah, which, you know what brings me to my next point. Sorry, Jonah. No, I think I think the echo chamber is such an important thing.
Please clarify what.
Echo chamber is kind of like your friends egging you onto what you want to hear, like tickling your ears.
So it's like when you start gossiping, they will reply with.
I wouldn't say
example.
gossip, but I would say, I'm gonna do this thing, and then you, Jonah, are like, yeah, Sarah, you should do this thing, and you're like,
And it's wrong.
It's wrong, but like in my head, I'm like, yeah, Jonah said it's alright, I should do it. But yeah, I think that, like, I'm gonna speak vaguely. I had a situation last year where like a few people egged me on for something, and it wasn't like it wasn't sinful, but it wasn't a great idea. And like I appreciated Adriana's politeness, rebuke, to the situation, because like I think obviously not everyone's open to rebuke and being pushed on the right road. But I think if you see your friend or a person that has like such a love for God, that they're so hungry to be in God's presence and doing God's will, that they will take the rebuke. So I think Adriana knew that I might have not wanted to hear it, or it would have, I don't know, crushed me. Like, she still said it. And like at the end of the situation, like I thank Adriana over everyone that pushed me towards it, because I'm like, sure, you're the real friend out of all these people that told me to do a certain thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
But that kind of accountability does exist, and it's the same in reverse of like, if I'm going down a wrong path, like Sarah loves God more than me to make sure that God's kingdom doesn't lose in that way. Ultimately, like, and that's been something that I know I've struggled with in the past, of being the type of person who just doesn't want to hurt you, but I don't weigh it out against like God's kingdom is going to lose if you stray away. Yeah. And weighing it up that way, like, has been very helpful. Yeah, like I'd rather lose Adriana then like feed her a lie. Do you know what I mean? Like, I love it. Like, at the end of the day, like, if I tell her the truth, obviously in love and grace, and we've got relational currency, and she takes it so horribly that she cuts me out, like, that's on her. Yeah. And that comes back to wanting to be one another's savior. Like, if Sarah did that and she was like, and I cut her off and she was down in the rut, it says a lot about how much she weighs trying to save me. Yeah. And not just leaving God to do that work. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm rambling and
No, you're
waffling.
fine.
I'm
It's
sorry.
fine. It's okay.
And I think another thing that maybe affects women is probably people pleasing. Like, I know men can be people pleasers, but I think as women, like, you're taught as a little girl, you know.
This is what I was gonna say. Do you think the perception? Because I think girls care about. Again, generalizing. I feel bad because I'm not a female. I can't say this stuff, but
We
I
give you
think.
clearance. It's right.
Thank you. They care about attention and their perception.
Like their reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't
I
that
don't
word for
think
it?
it's like necessarily like reputation and your perception, but it's more like you want to be liked. Like
Okay.
if I
Wouldn't we say that that's inherently how we are designed
Yes.
in God's image? Like there is an element of pursuit and then being pursued, and we are more designed in the being pursued kind of way. But it can when God is not fulfilling that role first, it can be it very easily becomes like toxic in and outside the church. Social media being one of them.
Yeah.
And all of these areas where we're pursuing being liked, even at the cost of our integrity and our morals and values, and, you know, just for the sake of making sure this person. I also say this element of like being gentle and quiet to speak and whatever, like, does that come at the cost of when we like rebuke someone? Is that being gentle and quiet to speak?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Look, to be honest, I've had these conversations with some people. And honestly, I just left the conversation. This is going to sound a bit rude, but it's not rude. I literally just labeled the conversation like, man, girls are aliens. Like, they're actually just like,
And
in the most loving way
fair.
possible. Because it's like, like, it's so different to how I'm wired or how men are wired.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, that's just like
The last thing I care about.
It doesn't even make sense to me. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like, praise God that you guys are that different. You
Yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's
And it
just,
can very quickly become, why are you so different? And we come to like womanhood and like, you know, no, you're meant to understand it the way I do. And then the world has shifted to try to make us like more like men. And now we're at a point of like,
no, we're not
I
sure.
cannot function. Like it takes effort and energy, and I'm tired trying to act this way, and it won't. Like we'll probably always struggle with the same style of people pleasing, and again, me being the first one, and
Yeah.
still learning how to say truth in love. Like for me, they almost are like exclusive. You can't say truth without being loving, and can't be loving. Like no, that's wrong. And friendships like the one I have here and with a lot of other girls
Yeah.
have taught me like, no, look, you're not going to lose this friendship if you tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And if you do, they're adults. They make these decisions. You just be the open, warm arms if they need to return.
Can I add a layer to it?
Yeah.
Do you think the culture of, let's say, like gossiping, do you think the culture of gossiping creates an environment where it's difficult to actually go to your friends or go to other women and be vulnerable because because maybe you're thinking of experiences, maybe just subconsciously, like whenever you're with your girls, you're talking about, I don't know how this works. I don't know how it works. So just
Yeah.
Talking with the girls.
and you're talking with the girls about other people or things, and maybe you're just like, maybe they'll talk about this subconsciously, maybe you're not actively thinking about that.
Can validate. I feel like
I
can
think we
validate
like sort of alluded that to it earlier, but like at the same time, like I'll say for myself, I'm probably like scanning situations, being like, well, if you talked about this person, why would I open up to you? And like, well, I've never talked to you about anyone, and you haven't either to me, so I feel safe in this. So it's sort of kind of like that for me.
Which is why I was like with Sarah, it did take those 4 or 5 sessions earlier to suss out the vibe. And like I said, for me, vulnerability, one of the biggest barriers has been trust, knowing that in some areas that might be more of a problem than others. There have been places where I've walked in and I'm like, I cannot sense that, all I can sense is trustworthiness. And it's made it immediately 100 times easier to be vulnerable. And those spaces, there's a safety that you just cannot replace. And in many ways, we should cherish and value a lot. And Graceway being one of them, to be honest. Like, I can't explain the level of safety I feel, even among those that I've only hung out with maybe once or twice.
Yeah. And Yeah, I feel like I could yap to anyone from
Yeah,
Graceway.
literally.
Like, honestly, I could probably tell my
And they'll
deepest,
probably tell you
darkest
off when it
secret.
gets too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
We even with gossiping though, we tend to like cover it up. It's like for the most part, like we cover it with but we're not bringing anyone down or whatever. But it's like you're wasting word space that gains nothing for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
and all it's doing is bringing people down. But you're like covering up with this like self-righteousness of like, oh no, but it's not gossip.
Yeah, and I think, look, if you're, like I always say, if you're going to gossip about someone, you might as well, like, say it to the face. Like, if that person deserves a rebuke, say it to their face. Like,
Often gossip, I assume, men gossip as well.
Yeah.
For sure. And I've been in gossiping conversations.
See, that is a foreign concept. Like, in the same way that you guys think that there are things that women don't struggle with, I like that doesn't compute in my brain.
It happens a lot
Really?
more than you realize.
The men gossiping thing?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, it really doesn't. I'm like, what does that even look like? Like,
Yeah, it's just, and to be honest, every time I'm in a situation of gossiping, I'm either in the situation feeling so
Sick.
disgusted
yeah,
and so
it's
ugly about it,
disgusting.
or like afterwards I'm like boys, what did we just do, sort
Yeah.
of thing. And it's one of the ugliest feelings whenever I'm in I've spoken to people about it. Whenever I'm just, it often stems from someone struggling with something with someone, which I think is okay to talk about, because you need to sort of,
It's a fine line
Yeah, it
between
is,
where,
yeah.
like, you're saying a situation and then you're like, oh, I'm venting. And it's like,
Yeah.
at that point, it's gossip.
and then
Yeah.
people egg that person on
Yeah.
and
the
say,
bitterness.
Yeah, that
that
person-
form.
Yeah.
I think the worst part about gossip is the fruit of it is always anger, bitterness, self-pity, and all of these things that you just biblically we're not are not encouraged, but also like they're just not productive. Like what does this achieve besides like bringing you down and bringing somebody else down and dividing a community? Ultimately you're
Yeah.
putting thoughts into somebody else's head as well, even though they might not feel that, and then that just goes against everything about unity and what like Ephesians talks about, like
Yeah, I feel
But-
like the amount of times, like, my perception of people have changed based off, like, what someone has gossiped about, and then I'll interact with that person,
it's
and I'll
so
be like,
destructive.
yeah, and I'll be like, I don't see any of that in that person.
there's been a lot of that, and I like making a lot of assumptions, but I assume
Yeah.
it's the same. It's probably even worse for women, where like someone would say something about someone, and I'll be like, I don't want to know. Like I'm trying to know this person. Let me know this person for myself, especially coming to church and stuff. Just hearing conversations or being part of conversations. I'm just like, honestly, I thank God that He's given me the ability to not let that affect me too
Discern,
much.
yeah.
But it's still like,
You can't unknow things.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
annoying because I'm like, I know this about you.
Yeah.
I know that you have done this to my friend. I know that you've done this to this person. And I'm just like, from what I can see and like what our interactions, you've been
Nothing but
lovely.
good to me. Yeah. Yeah.
But then I just know this about this, and I'm just like, I don't even blame that person. I blame the person that told me more than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
It's just, it is very destructive.
Yeah. And the best friendships are those, like, there have been moments, and I think this is what I value, is when Sarah will be like, guys, enough. Like, what is this? Mid-conversation. It takes a lot of, I guess, spirit moving to detect sin as it's happening and cut it off, not just work on it afterwards. And yeah, or like midway of a thought that really does, it might even just be a neutral thought, but has no benefit and has no gain. And or no I actually disagree with that statement. Like, wait, if it doesn't have any benefit or gain, you're more likely to backslide. But Sarah will be like, no, like that has no fruit. Like, don't think like that. What is that going to achieve? What is that going to? And even that can be quite rare, because sometimes like people are just don't want to upset you, which is it's a beautiful heart, but it's like, is that helpful or not? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Do you is it like when you like I said, for me, when gossiping happens, I feel so ugly about it. Does that happen naturally for you, for girls, or is it just like it's just gossiping so natural at this point, like you don't even realize you have to actually like think about it? You have to take like initiative in your head to get to that point? Does that question make any sense?
I just want to preface this that what Adriana said is not like I don't struggle with gossip, because like it's not that. But I do feel disgusting because I always put myself in that person's shoes. And I think the one thing that always crushes me, and I don't know why, is like when I find out someone's gossiped about me. Like, I don't know why, it's just so crushing.
Even if you know it's absolutely not true and it doesn't change anything about the way you believe about yourself, but like,
Yeah,
I think
so
I don't know. I feel like it takes a little bit more. Like, you'll read those passages of like, you know, your word, like
about the tongue.
Taming the tongue, and like one word will turn the horse's head, and like we'll read all of this stuff and then it will crush you and you'll feel it. But as with every sin, you go away and like, you know, it'll catch you. I think the thing with gossip is it catches you in your weakest, and being actively like slow to speak is truly like taking that breath. But putting that into practice, like I heard this quote the other day that was like, knowing is not enough, we must do.
Yeah.
Being willing is not enough, we must act. Like we might know, we might be willing.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah.
Was there a moment in time where that switched, where you know that you probably shouldn't be doing it, but was there a time where you're like, okay, wait, I'm actually like, I know I shouldn't, but now I'm actually going to stop, or I'm going to try to stop. Obviously, something's difficult. Was there a specific moment?
Are you talking about gossip, or just sin?
Mainly,
It's funny how sin hits us deeper when it's about us, like from the outside in. And I think for me, the biggest moments of change have been like when, you know, I heard somebody gossiping about me, and I'm like, well, I never want somebody else to feel that way again. Yeah, just the impact that it has is so dramatic, and you really don't know. It shouldn't take that level, I think. It shouldn't take up until the moment that you...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think for me, like, I'm not going to be deep, but I used to be bullied as a child. So I think, like, those things, like, really affect me. Like I want people to feel welcomed. I don't want people to feel ostracized. Like, I hate gossip in that sense, because it just reminds me of like how I felt as a child.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say would say gossip has always been on my radar. And even like in the, like, if you think the Christian world's bad, like hanging out in non-Christians, like working in retail, like
that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Like, it's awful.
Like, what makes you set apart? And I think the biggest moment it's hit me is when you're doing it in a public space among Christians, and I'm like, well, if somebody walked past us right now, could they tell us apart from, you know, the guy or the girl next door? And the answer is no, they could not. And that's probably when I feel the most disgusting, because I'm like, I am literally not representing Christ and not being his ambassador, and all of that.
And I guess, like, speaking about gossip specifically, it's funny because we didn't even plan to talk about gossip.
Again, this is the thing. The implication is we, like...
Yeah, I think, you know, God obviously led it this way. But, like, me and Adriana have, like, we talk about, like, you know, the Bible verse where it's like, you know, take your eye out if you're sinning, because you sin. If, like, you know, what is it? Chop your arm off? Yeah, chop your arm off. And it's kind of like, well, if you literally cannot go to a hangout without gossiping, stay home, bro. Stay home.
Chain yourself to the bed.
Honestly, go home and write some topics that you're going to talk about. Yeah. That's not gossip.
And that's the other thing. Like, why is the conversation steering in that direction? And that's pointing to a deeper thing.
Like, do you not fear God? Do you have nothing else to talk about?
Nothing else to talk about.
I think it's the big thing is that you have nothing else to talk about.
Which is so sad.
It's so sad.
Just write questions. Just write questions.
Actually, write questions. Be like, how was your day today?
Yeah, I think, again, it's so sad that it ends up in that direction. And again, I don't know why we're saying we. Like, I feel this space is like, we're very conscious of it, very self-aware.
Yeah.
And yes, we will fall into it. Yeah. But I feel like over the 3-4 years that I've known you, we've gotten better and better at detecting it. Good. Yeah. Which is the whole point. And we'll call each other up on it. And like, you'll just be like, this isn't building anyone up, guys. Enough. Change the conversation.
Yeah.
But it's about filling that space with something else. And it's like, well, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
You know, I was just thinking about
what?
Like, we're on a podcast. Imagine we ran out of stuff to talk about.
We started gossiping. Oh my god.
And actually, the thing that's the worst about the gossip, it's never about anything like worldly, it's usually about how other people live their Christian lives.
Yeah, I think in the Christian circles, it's about Christianity.
Yeah.
Which is like wild.
It's such a, for me, I feel so self-righteous in that moment. Like it gives Pharisee.
Yeah, it's
And,
literally giving Pharisee. But yeah.
There's something needing humbling about that.
I know.
Humility.
So when you guys were speaking, I brought this up. And this is, I think this will be good for, I think, all of us to hear and to think about when we're gossiping, when we're just doing sin. It's terrifying, which is good. But it is from Luke chapter 8, verse 16 to 18. And it says, "No one after lighting a lamp covers it with a jar or puts it under bed, but puts it on a stand so that those who enter may see the light. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Take care then how you hear, for to the one who has more will be given, and from the one who has not, even what he thinks that he has will be taken away." That English was crazy. But it was a verse in the middle. "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light." I don't know if I'm taking it out of context, but that verse alone, it's like, even if that's not what's going to happen, sometimes I just imagine everything that I've done in secret, or everything that maybe I've said in like my small friendship group. Sometimes I just imagine like at church or something, there's just like a screen of everything that I've done. It's terrifying. I don't want these people to see it. The sad thing is, God has seen all of this. Somehow still loves me. If any of you saw all those things that I've done, there's no way you're going to be like, "Oh, Jonah can be a youth leader, Jonah can do this, Jonah can do this." You guys wouldn't be my friends anymore. You'd probably execute me.
I want to say you're wrong, but we don't know. I get what you mean. And I think this almost elusiveness we think we have of like, oh, they're not going to find out, and a lot of the times they might not, is probably our weakest moment. The first thing is we're forgetting that God is in the room, and he knows so much to split bone and marrow. That's the first part. But and I think for me, those turning points have been, what would this person think if they heard it? How would they feel? Would they feel encouraged? By all means, keep saying it. Would they feel brought down? Then why am I saying it? And ultimately, we're going to give an account in front of the Lord anyways. And this kind of goes back to the podcast of last week. That's
also another, like, my scariest.
Like giving an account, right?
And I was going to say, it kind of reminds me of, we're doing Timothy in the girls group chat. And it says in 1 Timothy 5:24, "The sins of some are obvious, reaching the place of judgment and ahead of them. The sins of others trail behind them." So it's kind of like, we see some sins, but we don't see all.
It's
but God sees them all.
I think it's very difficult. And I assume it's a good thing. But like, if I look at most people at church, unless the people that I'm really close to, I look at them and I'm like, I can't see you guys sinning much. Like, sure, you gossip every now and again, but I don't see you actually deep in sin. But obviously that's
just your impression of the outside. But no, I like, it is a big thing. And I think part of the problem is that seeing it as not as big a deal as it is, you don't really notice that until something bad does go wrong. And then fighting that thought with, no, God sees it as bad. And then it's just so destructive in many ways, both within the church and on what the church looks like. I feel like a lot of the opinions of the church outside come down to this idea of, oh, but you guys don't even love each other. Like, you guys are divided among one another. You guys are this. And we're just fueling that flame. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a great...
I just wanted to bring that up. It's terrifying, but it's rewarding as well. Like, the fact that we have to show an account gives me a reason, I guess.
Not to. And just your words, like, it comes back down to the idea that Christ is coming back, and you have a word limit, and you're going to use like 10 of them on gossiping about this person. Like,
and it literally
like, there's no plus or minus 10% business. Like, you're going to waste your words to achieve nothing. I don't know. I'm at that point of
do you find that when you do gossip, I don't know how this podcast turned into gossiping and whatnot, but do you find that gossiping is like, it's actually things that you mean? or is it like half, or is it mainly you do mean it, or is it not? You don't mean much of it.
For me, I would say it's when I do gossip, probably things I mean, because I probably wouldn't attack someone's appearance or like the way they dress, but it might be like what they did to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like shallow gossiping.
Yeah. To me, it's probably like emotion fueled gossiping.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like for me.
I would say the same. I feel like sometimes it's just out of boredom and again having nothing to say. So I don't know if I actually mean it, except just to fill space. It's obviously things that have happened, but it's like I'm saying it now rather than when it actually happened, because it didn't mean that much to me. Like I actually don't care that much. But it's like, why say it in the first place? Like, I don't know. I can't really.
Yeah.
Like, I don't actually think ever thought of the content of the gossip, just that it was happening is a big deal enough for me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I honestly feel like we're having a therapy session with Jonah. But, you know, I always think of the Bible verse where words are many, sin is present.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, you know, it might not be gossip, but just keeping your words fewer.
Yes.
Oh, words.
Yeah.
Words are important for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
But, and like coming back to this space
Yeah.
of like why the heck would Sarah need to gossip about me when she could just come and tell me to my face?
I think it's like we have that space where like I don't
Doesn't need to gossip.
Yeah, I don't
about
want
me.
to say gossip is warranted because it's not. But I can just say whatever to her face.
So
Yeah.
do you think there's a part to play on the other person for being gossiped about?
We talked about this. No, I don't think any gossip is warranted, but I think this comes back to being rebuked. I think you need to have a heart posture of being open to rebuke.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard when you're tippy-toeing around people that love the Lord and can't handle rebuke. So you don't like, then it's kind of fueling in you.
Yeah.
And then like sometimes I guess that's when I'm tempted to sin. Is because I can't approach that person because that person won't have a bar of it. And yeah.
So were you asking like they're not approachable, so that's why you're gossiping?
Yeah, like, I don't know. I guess I'm just wondering whether like what do we do about it? Or, like what can we do? Like obviously, the Lord's word should be plenty.
Yeah.
But practically, what does that look like? And I can only reflect back on our friendship
Yeah.
of like the only reason I don't feel like I need to go gossip about something is when I feel like emotionally fueled. I'll just be emotionally fueled in front of Sarah. Whether she hates me or loves me afterwards, that's on her.
Well, I think that's probably this is the guy answer.
Yeah.
It's actually it's not really the guy answer, but it's like my problem solving brain.
Yeah.
It's just why don't you just leave that person's name out and just like don't, no. Wait, I know. She'll find out. Like
Yeah.
she'll know who it is.
Person X.
But like, I mean, just be like, hey Sarah, I'm feeling this way towards someone.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into detail. Obviously, it's probably hard, but like, I'm feeling this way. Sarah might be like, "What happened?" But, like, that's why for me, I never ask
Yeah.
like what happened or.
And that's
Okay.
that's the human in us. Like,
Yeah.
You're putting like a
Well, that's the
Yeah, I know.
holiness.
yeah.
I
And I
know.
wonder. So the first problem with that I feel is like Sarah just knows way too much about me not to know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Like
So
I would
problem
just
one,
Yeah.
the wisdom in that is okay. I'm not going to go to Sarah. In fact, I'm not going to go to anyone who remotely might have an
Go to a
overlap.
dude. Just go to a guy.
There we have a problem number two.
Yeah.
The guy probably won't like. And this is no. First of all, we probably should have.
Nah.
Yeah. I was joking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the guy probably would be like, "This is not even a problem."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But I think
But like
we're-
someone more mature, somebody
Yeah.
who won't. That's not a temptation for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. But I think we're getting better at that. Of like,
Oh, 100%.
like, you know, you open up about someone and instead of trying to fuel it, I'll be like, oh, but have you seen it in this perspective kind of thing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
That's healthy.
yeah. Which I think has been the healthiest way about
Yeah.
it. Of like,
Yeah, even like you with me, like you're like, yeah, but this happened. But I'm like, no, but this happened.
I'm like,
But
no,
yeah.
but 1 second.
Yeah, but like you saw
what's fueling the
yeah,
emotion?
yeah.
Get rid of that.
Yeah.
Some of it's time. Some of it's just like let Sarah vent
Mm.
and actually not say anything. And then when she's less emotionally fueled, hey, but did you see it from this perspective?
Yeah.
Because when somebody is emotionally driven, no matter what you tell them, even if it's rebuke, they might not receive it.
Yeah.
for sure.
So I don't know, just be like, yo, Sarah, just, yeah. Why is Sarah the only one sitting in this conversation? Like,
Sarah's done a lot of singing.
like, there have been moments where Adriana, like, she's like, Adriana, like, have you thought about it?
Yeah.
From this perspective? Or, like, maybe that's not where they were coming from. Even if she might, like, she's just throwing thoughts out.
Yeah.
And
I think
that's enough.
that's just like a more of a neutral way to diffuse the situation.
Without fueling it.
Yeah.
You know what's going to be extremely fun for me? This is like being a boyfriend, and this is going to happen to me. I'll just be like, ask Sarah and Adriana, please. I don't know.
That's so funny.
I actually think there's insight, like, that sometimes a man can offer.
Yeah, I think so too.
Of, like, the total, like, just, why is this a problem?
Yeah.
It's because we like, even with guys, it's just like, here's like the solution. Just do it. But I think it's much more complicated for girls.
I just think there's an element missing. Like, you know, when you're like, I just can't comprehend how that would be your answer.
Yeah.
It's the same of like, but there are so many factors at play.
Yeah.
That's why I think you girls are alien. Not you two specifically, but just girls
No,
in
but we
general.
are
definitely alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Should we
Gossiping was.
move on?
Yeah, shall we move on?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want? We just spoke about gossiping. but is
Honestly,
there anything
I think it was an interesting conversation.
else? That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, can I actually end the gossiping conversation with this? I'm going to challenge you two to be the start of this new age of women that's going to happen. And I'm being full serious. I know I have like a little smoke on my face, but like actually be the start of this. And I don't care if it's just you two or if it's other people, other group, or like a group that you're in or whatever. Whenever you hear some sort of gossip, just you can't do that. Yeet
No,
them.
look, to be honest, I think the biggest part is like when you sense bitterness, because that's, or like the start of bitterness, that's usually where it goes. And just being sensitive to, I know with the youth girls where like, this is from my experience, but gossip in high school can be the worst place for all of this, especially when you're surrounded by the world. Workplace gossip, like even not amongst one another, like just, I think remaining in darkness is the first place. Like just get out, like find a way out of the darkness and that bitterness, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think the
has to
first
start
way
somewhere.
the first way to get rid of the darkness is exposing a light on it.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's the way you get rid of it. But like,
Yeah.
if you
in the right spaces.
What do you mean?
As in, like, not in front of someone who will just continue to gossip with you.
No, that's what exposing a light is.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Like,
Well.
Did you girls have any other?
How long have we been going for?
Around an hour.
Okay.
I
I think
don't know how long we cut. So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was thinking, like,
Suffering in friendships.
there's that.
Yeah.
Like, the vulnerability thing.
then,
This is where you guys
This
can
is
roast
like,
me.
it. Why?
Or like men.
Oh, man. I told Sarah this earlier today. I was like, I feel like men can become friends quicker, but takes longer to suffer with one another. Whereas with girls, we tend to, this is my, again, misconception, maybe
that's
fix
okay.
me. Like, you guys might, like, seem so close so quickly, but it takes that really long time to be like, I'm going to call you when I'm crying. Whereas girls will take really long to, like, settle. But once we've opened up, like, it's kind of the floodgates.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Because I think I have literally the polar opposite, like
Experience?
thoughts than, like, I think this is how I've always perceived it, and I don't think it's bad, whatever. But I think girls they seem to just be like, just like everyone can get along, sort of thing. Everyone, like, each girl can talk to each girl. This is in church space. I don't know outside of church space, but every girl talks to each girl, and it's pretty like shallow. With guys, it's like you usually have your people that you speak to, but the people that you speak to, it's like extremely like deep. We don't really like cry to each other very often. If we do, it's like this person is going through it. Like really,
Yeah.
like that's like the level. But that's not a what's the word? That's not like an image of the relationship being weak. It's just like if I'm really going through it, I'm more than happy to go to Bashar or Fadi or whoever else, Yusuf, and be like crying and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's just rare for that to happen because of me, not because of our relationship. But I will go to them and be like, guys, I'm struggling with the worst of the worst. Like here is my life, and they'll help. So it's different.
Yeah.
But I think for girls, they have shallow, and I think it's like this is my perspective. It's actually really hard for them to get into that deep level. So we actually literally have the opposite ideas.
I think it really depends on who you are, as a girl, because I feel like I always say this, and you can only meet people as deep as you've met yourself. So I think if there's there's girls that haven't really met themselves deeply. They haven't sat in the darkness. They haven't sat in their sin. They haven't seen how disgusting their sin is before God, or they just haven't suffered quite a bit. It would be very hard for them to connect with someone else. I would say, I have cast the net out, and to some people, I might have cried to them, and they just don't know how to respond. And I think
that remains superficial.
Yeah, and it's not because, and I think it's more that they don't know how to respond and they don't know how to be vulnerable, not necessarily because they don't want to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
And something that's special here is that we're on paper, me and Sarah don't make sense, but we went to Melbourne, and that first time in January where she just flew in and stayed with me. We've only met each other maybe 2 or 3 times, but we drove for 3-4 days to different. We traveled all through Victoria.
We're probably in the car for 30 hours.
Yeah, and the conversation went everywhere, and Sarah allowed that, and I allowed that, and there was so much that we had in common in our suffering that I think we might not be able to share with a lot of other people, not by any of their doing, except that their life hasn't led them there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that we do cry more on the phone than guys do, and I guess that's where a lot of I guess there's more room for us to work with one another.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think girls just cry more in general.
Yeah.
So
I'm not kidding. We had this moment recently where Sarah was in Melbourne, and then they all left, and they were flying back to Sydney, and I just burst into tears because I'm oh my goodness, they've left again, and this again recently. And
I was already in Sydney, in my bed, crying as well.
And I just called her. We were both just
crying that we separated from each other.
And it I don't think I would do that with anyone else. And it takes that level of trust. But a lot of the sustaining of the friendship has been in those.
Yeah, I think
mutual suffering and the sharing of it.
Yeah, I feel suffering has definitely bonded us. I feel we've had our fair share of moments.
And suffering. Not so much with internal stuff, but the external.
Yeah, the external. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm I'm gonna read a Bible verse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please do.
I'm gonna read.
I've been thinking of questions, by the way.
Okay, I think of questions a while. I say this. So this is Job 2. This is before, because his friends ended up turning on him, didn't they? But, at the start they were kind of good, and
were they really good?
Oh, yeah, I know. But that's another thing. That's about we can talk about seasons.
Oh yes, which is the next bit that I want to ask you about.
Yeah, seasons. Okay. And it's kind of it says, or his friends, when they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him. They began to weep aloud, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. And sometimes we will be in suffering, and literally the only thing we can do is sit with that person and pray. There's no physical thing we can alleviate to get them out of that suffering.
Yeah. And both of us feel we don't need to be one another's savior.
And
ultimately.
There's nothing to say. My words, my actions can't get you out of that suffering.
Yeah.
So just sitting with them.
Have you ever had that kind of moment where somebody said, "Look, I don't have an answer for you," or in fact said nothing?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been, I'll be very vulnerable. There's been 2 moments where I've actually cried with. Well, one was over the phone, one was in person. Actually, I think literally on the first podcast, I said this story. On the second podcast, I said this story of at Charlie's wedding, how I was just wrecked, and then I hid, then I cried, and Bashar came and I was crying with Bashar.
Wow.
And then the second time was again with Bashar on the phone. It was just like I was really struggling. It was like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And I called him, and he answered. It was like probably like 6 a.m., maybe 5 a.m. And he answered, and we just cried together. He
The
started
eureka,
crying.
Eureka moments.
What's a eureka? Yes, I heard it name before.
I've never used that word in my life, but it sounds like
I feel like it's like a moment.
Eureka.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So, like, I think with, like I said, with us, it's very rare that we cry. Again, I'm not speaking
it's
for
not about
them,
crying. Yeah, I guess it's
Yeah.
just like
but when one of us
is low.
suffer, then we all suffer, sort of thing.
Yeah.
We're all with that person when they suffer.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll do whatever I can to get that person out of it, whether it means I'll suffer even more than they are.
Yeah.
But there's usually
Well, that's
no way
what the
for
body of Christ is, right?
Yeah.
And I think about strengthening your feeble arms and legs, and even this idea of you might have your circle of people, but ultimately, if that one's not available, you've got this one, and if that one's not available, and that's what really the body of Christ is that the entire church is there for you. You might have those that meet your needs better, but the best and most fruitful places I've been is where I can go to anyone
Yeah.
at all time. But I think the one thing you brought up was like the seasons.
Yeah.
And one thing that's crazy is that me and Sarah's friendship essentially started when I moved to Melbourne. And that's great. So we don't see each other. And my question is, what do boys expect of one another friendship-wise?
Like, do you guys have like
Are you talking every day throughout the day? Like, what is that?
Like, do you guys get cut?
If a guy talks to another guy and like you're not best friends, like
Not
what is
quite.
it?
The expectations literally just like, if I need you, you'll be there. Like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, we don't really text each other every day. I'm sure we do naturally, but like, it's not like an expectation. If one of the boys don't text me a day, I'm not like, whatever. But Bashar's really, like, I'm sorry, Bashar, but he's not the best at texting. Like, and I'm just like, whatever. Like, I don't even care too much. I know Bashar. Like, I know his heart. His heart behind him not texting isn't like, I'm sick of Jonah.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm just an old Arab man. Like, I can't text properly.
I'm crying.
Sorry, Bashar. I love
Yeah.
Yeah, there's literally, I think, when I need you, like, whether that is a shoulder to cry on, which is, like I said, pretty rare, or if it's just like I need some like motivational or whatever it is, then they'll be there for me.
That's so
I think that's
cool.
literally the
It's very
expectation.
unique.
Yeah.
Unique for
For the guy. I think the best friendships have been those ones. I'm gonna throw something out, and Sarah, I don't know, validate me or rebuke me. But do you feel like in general, like we have that mentality of whenever I need them, they'll be around, but also we tend to just need more, which ends up being a daily thing sometimes.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like,
but like,
I'm having a hard time at work. I need you.
Yeah. I think like there's just
the song really broke my heart. I need you. Like
or sometimes it's just like there's days where we don't
That's so
talk,
alien to me.
but sometimes I will like literally say every thought that came to my head.
Yeah.
But I think back to like what we were saying before is that we didn't really, even though we're strong friends, we didn't have expectations of each other. And we didn't have the expectation, we need to talk every day. Otherwise, like, I'm insecure in our friendships. And I think we both had security in God, that we didn't need to seek out security from, like, people. And the security in each other that, like, you know, like, I don't care that you're in Melbourne. I don't care if you have other friends, because obviously we need physical friends in where we are. And we were even open. We're like, you know, maybe our friendship might not last forever. Like, maybe...
Not because anything bad happens, but, like... You know, if you get into a relationship and you get married, dynamics change. And I think holding that friendship, like this is going to be the friendship for the rest of time is very dangerous as well. Like you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position.
I have an example of like me and so, you know, Darian? I don't think you know Darian. So he's my friend that I met in Port Macquarie. He was like one of the, it's going to sound depressing, but one of the first times I've ever felt like proper love from a friend
Mm-hmm.
was like him. It's gonna sound so depressing, but it's literally he just called me on my birthday. That's it. That was so sad. I know, but that's literally it. And with him, so ever since I moved down back to Sydney, it was just like we wouldn't see each other much. We like he's pretty bad at texting as well, but he wouldn't text. Like we wouldn't really text very often, but we'd see each other probably twice a year. And in those moments, it's not like it's like we just nothing's sort of changed. Like we just that's our catch up. Like we catch up in those moments, and those 2 times that we see each other each year, we catch up, and then we just like we're just fine. Like it's like
it's just as strong as where you left.
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Absolutely.
and I think that's testament to I guess men friendships. I'm not.
Yeah, no, there are. Again, there's this space, and I do think it stems from a security in God, but also we aren't just each other's friends, and that's it, and that's the look. It's where like we can share the same level of depth in a different sort of way with somebody else, and Sarah's not going to get upset. And the beauty of it is that we can tap into so many other people to see and hear more from God. And you know, there are friends that I've had since high school. There are friends that I've made after Sarah that hold just as much value to me. And the expectation of Sarah is that she's not going to get upset at that. And in fact, we don't talk every day. And sometimes there'll be weeks where we don't talk, and we'll just be like, hey, like first of all, we don't see each other. Obviously, we're in different states. She lives in Sydney and I live in Melbourne. She's come to Melbourne a few times, which has been so beautiful. And like whenever I'm in Sydney, we'll catch up somehow. But we'll also do the craziest things on our catch ups. Things that like, again, the vulnerability of like, I just want to. Okay, in all fairness, we went to a park and just screamed one day. Just screamed. like
we were crying.
Screaming.
That's so funny.
It was after a rough period for both of us. And we just needed to
and then I just
let it
went
out.
back to Melbourne the next day like it was nothing. And like
Imagine, I would just imagine like me walking in the park and just like hearing
we thought about that.
two
Look,
girls,
there
like,
was no one in the
screaming.
park.
but we
So,
genuinely knew we'd be sent to but I just think that can be a reason why some friendships don't last the distance, because there's a mismatch of expectation. And interestingly, I think guys just have that's such a healthy way of doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's
Not to
just
say girls
different.
don't, but I think it's
It's just different. Look, there is definitely parts of. I feel like we've really destroyed women in this podcast.
No.
Oh, I feel like I don't know. But there are definitely parts in men relationships where it's like I said, I struggle to be weak in front of the boys.
And
like,
I think women deal with emotions better.
yeah.
Like I think there's a reason why men don't cry as well. I don't think. Would you say men know how to deal with another man crying?
Not really. Like it depends what they're crying about.
Yeah.
But if it's like I've had a hard day at work, just I was just like, okay, like what about every other day? Like,
Oh well, damn.
We're making again preface was generalizations and
Yeah.
like from personal experience.
So this is, I guess, we'll probably talk a lot on. I have 2 questions, and they tie into each other. Do you think men relationships or friendships and women friendships should look different?
Great question.
I don't know, but I think we should learn from each other.
Which is what's happened.
Yeah, like I think, this conversation. Like I think especially men should probably learn maybe more of the emotional stuff from women.
Do you think men should be more emotional?
Well, if you're having emotions, you might as well deal with them. Like I'm not saying they should cry every day, but I think like if you're suppressing emotion, you're not being honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think acknowledging them but
Yeah.
dealing with them differently.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about what point would we like, because I can't really think of
What's the
besides
differences?
what would be the difference.
Yeah, but I think
I think naturally it would be different, but I'm saying like, should they? Obviously, there's going to be a difference in like the emotion level, but that's different between the individual, not the difference between the friendship. You know what I'm trying to say? So what would be the difference between the friendship rather than the individuals? Because obviously you would have to be more emotionally inclined to the other woman.
Yeah.
But for guys, it's like we really lack that. But
Yeah.
in general, do you reckon they have to stay the same? Or they should be the same or different? Or
I'm just thinking biblically, like, I don't think God has really set, like, he's given us a framework for
Yeah.
friendships, and if he wanted to make a difference, like, or set them apart, he would have. He did that for other.
Yeah.
So that would be my instinct, is that they shouldn't look different fundamentally.
But you know what? Thinking about it, I'm thinking about like David and Jonathan. Like
they were very emotional together.
like that is such an emotionally intimate relationship.
But see,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it should look different between men and women.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it would feed the stereotypes. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, if we were to say yes, it would be because we think men should be less emotional or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and women should be more like, let's go, whatever. Like,
Yeah, I
but
think-
the framework is still the same.
Yeah, I think it's as long as you're like glorifying God, you're egging each other on for Christ, you're supporting each other, encouraging each other.
So this is going to be my next question.
Like-
I think to end it, what is the perfect friendship? And like just break down. Don't just say like Jonathan and David, but like actually like what qualities of them? What are the qualities? A biblical perfect friendship.
I don't know about perfect.
Well, the verse that comes to my head is the spurring one another
Yeah.
on to good deeds.
Yeah, I think
That's first instinct.
encouragement, like in rebuke, being able to rebuke, living for Christ.
But like, as with anything you're
Yeah.
assessing, any interaction, whether it's between man and man and woman, like elder, like young to like, how are we assessing that? Besides, is God winning?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there another principle? I'm both the deepest and simplest person, but I need help here.
Like that is the principle. But I'm saying like practically, what does that look like?
I feel like there's like the big overarching themes, but like different people want like different levels of things. Like for instance, I'm more of a deep D&M kind of person. So like if I could have that all the time, I would love that. But like, you know, some other people want a bit more, you know, lightheartedness. So I think those little things are more up to the individual, but like the overarching themes is like you're able to encourage each other, you're able to spur each other on, you're able to rebuke.
I think the unequally yoked element, we tend to like separate just for relationships, but it does also apply for.
I think you're mainly talking about friends, to be honest. Like
Well,
in
yes,
the
yeah,
context
like
of
in
it.
the context,
Yeah.
like I mean, in the like,
Yeah,
but
no, I get you.
we tend to isolate it
we
for
do.
that. But like again, the same principles tend to apply. Is somebody who won't like deep conversations. You probably like. It's not a bad thing to say. This might not be the place for a really close friendship.
Yeah.
In terms of a
You can
perfect
still love them, but you don't have to be like catching up with them all the time. If like, yeah.
Practically, like perfect friendship or like a perfect friendship is one where like you can rebuke openly and know that it's in love. One that acknowledges that you're human on the other side. You might not be like, I'm sure when you thought about Bash, you're like, you know, he's got work. He's like really busy, or anyone, and you'll be like, you know, your understanding of their circumstance, and ultimately your first friend is Christ in
Yeah,
for both
sure.
of you. If that's messed up in one of yous, then the expectations and all of that will probably go.
Look, the thing is, I see it. Let's say I go to Bashar, it's because I'm struggling to go to Christ. So it's
Ooh.
so Bashar is that person. I say Bashar as an example.
Yeah.
I have other
Yeah.
guys, but it's they're the next person where I'm like, they'll bring me back to Christ. They'll actually point the direction to Christ. Of like, maybe it is a shame thing. Maybe it's like I'm not sure what to do here. They'll always point back to Christ if they're actually good.
There's truth
friends.
and love there. There's yeah. I have so many thoughts. I'm just like, does it need to be a D&M, which is what you said earlier, of like there are friends that you have that are just deep, and there are those that are just like not superficial but like entertainment, and then there are both. Like, I think the best kind of friendships are always the both ones.
Yeah, definitely.
'Cause, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say we do look at Jonathan and David, but I would say like just look at Jesus and his
Disciples.
disciples,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult because it's like Jesus doesn't get rebuked or anything like that because
Yeah.
there's nothing to rebuke.
Yeah.
But like, I guess the way he loves his friends, he treats his friends, and I
And
think
what he
it's just-
says about us about being friends. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just next level. Like the way he speaks to, like I like Peter would do my head in if he was my friend. Like I was like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but the way Jesus is just like, he's very calm but direct, and it's just it's meekness is
It's a
the
meekness,
word. Yeah. And it's just you guys brought up the verse spirit.
Spur one another on
Yeah.
to good deeds.
The thing that comes to mind, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the verse, or
Model verse for.
the other one is a close friend sticks closer than a brother,
Yeah.
or a good
You
friend.
like lay down your life, which is the other thing of like, I'm at like we're in a space right now where we do believe anyone would jump in front of a train for one another, and I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing to find. And I was also thinking about Paul and Barnabas, where you would think nothing would separate these guys. They are doing ministry. They are waking and sleeping probably in the same tent. They are like for a whole portion just named together, and then they're not. You know,
So sad.
Yeah.
it's and you know we were reading about it, and it's like, well, in that moment they doubled their ministry but not together.
Yeah.
And they probably might have, God thought that was the best way forward for the kingdom. They might have achieved less together.
Yeah.
And like as long as it was iron sharpening iron for the kingdom.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have a closing question for Jonah.
Okay.
What would you tell someone if they didn't have good biblical friends?
Find some. Find some.
Let's say they're trying.
I mean, like, it's. So you're talking to the perfect person for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
like I said, I didn't have many. Literally until Darian. It's unfair because I have friends from like kindergarten and stuff. It's just been like up and down with them.
Yeah.
But Darren was like the first person where it was like,
There's a consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah. and then it was like that was only for like a year, like from the year and until Graceway. So the thing is, try to find some, definitely pray for it, but also try and survive on your own. I know it's
I was gonna say.
it's tough, but it's like God will reward you. What God will give you what you need to bring him to bring you closer to him. And
That's
for me,
a
that
great
was
answer.
that was the
Yeah.
friendships.
Like side note on that, but I think there's such a beautiful space for friendship that you just shouldn't compromise to find them.
Yeah.
And I share that sentiment of like growing up, I just felt like there was always a slight mismatch in the people that I was around. Not that they were bad or anything, but like there was just something I couldn't grasp why I couldn't get along or establish depth. And then I came to Graceway, and it felt like he truly gave more than I could ask or imagine. And when you can persevere, first God teaches you so much in that season of like, what is it like to be in your own space? You know, being in your own space is a skill of its own. There are those that can't. And then on top of that, when you do meet the greatest, those friends that you would jump in front of a train for, it truly like, it's like you see color for the first time. And we don't give enough value to friendships. And we're for some reason always pursuing relationships and marriage. And it's like, no. God has given us everything that we need. And a lot of the needs that we might feel through marriage or whatever can be met through the church and through friendships. And when we realize that, we might not put as much of an emphasis on like finding the one.
Yeah.
There's so many ones that are serving us, and I wouldn't change it. Yeah.
Love it. Is there anything else you guys would say?
To finding friends? Or
Just to talk
anything?
about in general before we close.
Look, I feel
Fair
like we
enough.
could be talking for ages.
It's been an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So This is back-to-back podcast, by the way. So
Yeah.
Adriana's had to deal with me for 3 hours
Yeah,
now.
It's fine. I haven't dealt with you for 2 years, so this is the
It's
most.
very true.
Nah, I'm joking.
But I'm happy if you guys are happy.
Yeah, I think it's a good finish.
All right. Thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah.
I hope this didn't come across as like misogynistic.
I think it's all for growth.
Yeah.
Look, this is the start. I told you. This is the start of the new age of women,
Yeah.
and it starts with you two.
Yeah.
And whoever's watching.
Next pod we'll be discussing male friendships, and we'll do the next stage for male friendships.
That's
The
right.
accountability isn't even between me and Sarah, but like the entire like community.
That's good. I like this conversation because
Mm.
I've had conversations. Like I said, I've had these conversations with people before, and I'm just like, it just makes me upset. So
It's
Yeah.
sad. It's like the lyrics of Hosanna that come up of like break my heart for what breaks yours, and it's like we should be broken when we encounter the
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Man.
agree.
all right. Well, thank you all for watching, and peace.
See ya.